Thoughts. Cultivating Optimism. In the last clip, I shared with you the importance of bringing clarity in your mind to be able to see what is important and to be able to decipher that your thoughts are not reality in the face of challenges. Sometimes, when we're experiencing difficulty, we can have negative thoughts that prevent us from moving forward and responding to them purposefully. Noticing that these negative thoughts are simply creations of our brain and are not necessarily truth is one way that can help us move forward. Another way to move forward is by noticing our negative thought patterns and replacing these thoughts to cultivate optimism. Optimism is a will. Let's spend the next few minutes to explore this topic in more detail. Now let's start with a brief mindfulness of thoughts practice, which hopefully you have practiced for the last few days. So sit upright with your feet flat on the floor, with your spine long. Roll your shoulders up and back. And when you're ready, you can gently close your eyes or look downward with a soft gaze. Take a couple of breaths and settle into your body. Just feel the breath as it comes in, as it goes out, without trying to control it in any way. Just letting the breath be as it is, trying to maintain awareness of the full breath from the beginning of the in-breath to the end of the out-breath. As you sit here watching your breath, you may find yourself thinking about something you did or something you need to do, something that happened to you, or something that is going to happen. These are the kinds of thoughts that occur spontaneously in our minds all the time. See if you can notice when a thought arises in the space of your mind. Just becoming aware that you are thinking. Notice a thought without trying to push it away. Just let it go gently on its own. And then direct your attention back to the breath. As you sit here feeling your breath and observing the thoughts that arise in your mind, you may make a very soft mental note about what you notice. As you notice a thought, inwardly label your thoughts. Just thinking, just remembering, just planning. And then, without giving the thought any more attention, let it go and come back to the sensations of the breath. Take a deep breath in and a long breath out. And when you're ready, you can gently blink your eyes open. And remember that this is a very good practice to keep up with to help you remind you that our thoughts are not necessarily truth. Now we're going to switch gears and do this little exercise. You will need a piece of paper and a pen to write with. Imagine that you are new to the school and you don't know anyone. One day, a new friend in your school invites you to go out for dinner. It's on a weeknight after school, and you're told that all your friends will be there. You rush home and get all your homework done, shower, get dressed, and wait by the door to be picked up to go to dinner. You wait and wait. It gets dark, and your new friend never shows up. Now pause this video and write down your thoughts in one circle and feelings in the other. What are some thoughts that came up for you? What emotions? Perhaps some of you would be thinking how horrible and ignorant your friend is, with feelings of hurt, anger, and resentment. Well, some of you might be thinking, oh, I must not be cool enough to be their friend, feeling sad and lonely. A few of you may be thinking, oh, lucky me, I got my homework done, accompanied by joy and satisfaction. Now, when I do this exercise in my class, funny enough, the last thought is quite rare, and most people have angry thoughts for their friend and sad thoughts for themselves. Now, let me share with you what is happening in our brains when a situation like your friend not showing up occurs in our life. There is a part of our brain called the survival part of the brain that is highly activated. It's also known as the squirrel brain. It is where the limbic system is located, containing the amygdala that is responsible for fight, flight, or freeze response, which has a role in processing emotions during survival, arousal, and autonomic response, like your pupils dilating or your heart beating faster. And it's designed to keep us safe. This part was largely activated in our ancestors for survival when they were fighting or running away from their predators. Now, since its role is to keep us safe, the survival part of the brain, when activated, focuses on problems, obstacles, and limitations, and we find ourselves having narratives like, I can't, I have to, or I should or should not. What's funny is that in the modern days, survival brain can turn on even for stimuli that are not life or death, like getting an angry email or losing keys or being stood up. It's during these times that we forget to be purposeful with our response and react in ways that are not helpful by doing things like arguing or blaming or complaining. So, when were some times in your life that you felt that the survival part of the brain was highly activated? Now, there is another part of the brain called the growth part of the brain located in the prefrontal cortex of our brain. This is a rather recent development of the human brain developed in the last few million years, and it's able to process the information that comes from the limbic system and engage in meaningful decision making, regulate attention, and moderate behavior. It's a part of the brain that someone like Malala would be engaging a lot. When this growth part of the brain is activated, we see opportunities, possibilities, and focus on connections, and have narratives such as, I choose to, I wonder, or I could try. However, when we are faced with difficult circumstances, oftentimes the survival brain takes over, and it's difficult to engage with the growth part of the brain that allows us to respond optimistically and purposefully. This is why when your friend doesn't show up, we rarely have thoughts like, lucky me, that I got my homework done. Now, as humans, we can train our mind to connect to growth mindset even when our survival brain is activated. In challenging circumstances, it is important to connect to opportunities rather than completely being stuck with the problems so that we can respond to them purposefully and compassionately. Mindfulness practice that I invite you to engage in can help you do this. Research shows that mindfulness practice leads to less activity in the right prefrontal cortex, which generates distressing emotions, and more in the left, the brain center for upbeat, optimistic feelings, which shows that more mindfulness practices can create synapses in the left prefrontal cortex to help engage with thoughts related to growth. Now, without intentional practices like the mindfulness practice, though, it's difficult to connect to the growth mode in challenging circumstances. This is because as humans, the brain is like Velcro for negative experiences and Teflon for positive ones. Just to give you an example, if a teacher tells you, you are a thoughtful student who thinks about your peers deeply, you diligently engage in your homework, you put your effort in everything you do, and you could have done better in your science test because you scored the lowest in your class. What thought sticks with you the most? We have a bias towards negative experiences and thoughts because having our focus on them has helped our ancestors survive over many generations. We pay very little attention to positive experiences, or these experiences slip past us easily because they're not as useful for our survival. However, in the modern times, as I mentioned before, in many parts of the world, our negative experiences are rarely life or death situations, like losing our keys or getting 70% on a test. But we get stuck in a survival mode and practice generating negative thoughts, making synapses in this part of the brain stronger. With more and more synapses in the survival part of the brain being forged, pessimism can become a habit. This means that it becomes easier and easier for us to generate ants, automatic negative thoughts. Now, what are they? There are a few different types of ants, and I'm going to share them with you using an example of being at a friend's party. So here we go. You're about to go to your friend's party and you cannot find your phone. You always lose your phone. This is a form of always or never thinking. You attribute a single negative event as part of a pattern. So, for example, you always do bad on a test. Now, you are looking around trying to find someone to talk to at a party and feel lonely. So, you tell yourself, I have no friends and I am not interesting. This is a form of emotional reasoning. You assume that your negative feelings reflect reality. And as you walk around trying to find someone to talk to, you say to yourself, I am such a loser. This is a form of labeling. You attach a negative label to yourself or to someone else. Now, your friend introduces you to her friends as someone who sings really well and people love your performance at talent shows. In fact, in the last talent show, they voted your performance to be the best. And you respond by saying, oh, there are not that many singers in the school, so I didn't have much competition. Besides, I made so many mistakes in that performance. This is a form of magnification and minimization. You exaggerate the significance of minor problems while trivializing your accomplishments. Now, one of the two people you were talking to excused himself to get a drink, and you think it's because you're not entertaining enough. This is a form of personalizing. You take everything personally. Now, at the party venue, you see a professional band playing, and people really jiving to the music and cheering loudly. And you think to yourself, your singing is not as good as theirs. This is a form of comparative thinking. You measure yourself against others and feel inferior even though the comparison may be unrealistic. Now, with a group of people, you told a story that you thought was funny, and out of the 6 people, 2 of them didn't quite get the joke. So you tell yourself that you're a failure at entertaining people. You are not funny at all. This is a form of all or nothing thinking. You see everything as entirely good or entirely bad. If you don't do something perfectly, you have failed. Now, you think that people must think that you're boring and don't want to hang out with you because they all didn't laugh at your joke. This is a form of mind reading. You think you know what people think about you or something you've done without asking them, and it's usually bad. You think your friends will start talking poorly about you behind your back and you will not be invited back to the party. This is a form of fortune telling. You are certain that things will turn out badly. And you tell yourself, I should be funnier and I should be better at singing so that I can be more at the center of attention and people will like me. This is a form of guilt beating with should statements. You focus on how things should be, leading to severe self criticism as well as feelings of resentment towards others. Now, going home and reflecting on the party where there were moments of fun conversations and games, you're only thinking about the conversations that you had that didn't seem to take off. This is focusing on the negative. You see only the negative aspects of any experience. Now, really thinking about this party, you believe that you didn't have a good experience at the party because the friend who hosted the party invited really boring people. This is a form of blaming. You blame someone else for your own problems. It's always someone else's fault. Out of the various types of ants, do you recognize the types of ants that you seem to generate more than others? Well, for me, focusing on the negative and comparative thinking happen quite frequently. However, as you know, all of these thoughts are creations of our brain and not necessarily truth. This means that we have the ability to create thoughts, to replace these ants. At this point, I invite you to pause the video and see if you can replace each ant shown in this table. When you're ready, continue the video. Now, what you see here are examples of alternative thoughts that you can generate to replace the ants generated. There is no one right answer, so if your answer is different, but get to the idea of replacing the specific type of ant, that's okay. The first thing that is important is to recognize the pattern of your ants, and whenever the ant shows up, to practice coming up with an alternative thought. This will help you realize that your negative thoughts are not truths or reality. It will also help you to connect with the growth part of the brain to move forward in times of challenges with optimism. So, in summary, during challenging circumstances, it is easy for a survival part of the brain to take over, which makes it difficult for us to work with challenges connecting fully with ideas of connection, opportunities, and possibilities. When we are in a survival state, our reactions can be limiting and not helpful. Also, oftentimes we generate various types of automatic negative thoughts, which can drive us deeper into these survival states unnecessarily. Since thoughts are created by our brains and are not necessarily truths, it's important for us to develop a practice in recognizing these ants and replacing them so that we can engage the growth part of the brain and move forward based on what's important with purpose. Since engaging with the growth part of the brain takes effort, optimism is a will. We choose to be optimistic, and with practice, it gets easier.